Welcome to Everyday Linux User. In today's video I'm going to show you how to create an Arch VM. So if you look at my virtual machines here, you'll see that I've got Arch demo. So this is what we're going to create. So as you can see, we've got an Arch VM. It's bare bones, hardly anything installed, just the KDE desktop environment. And the reason for showing you this is to show you all the intricate steps you have to follow just to get Arch installed to this point. And my follow-up video will be explaining why I've done this. Okay, so obviously we're going to be following the Arch install guide. There's various steps along the way. I'll be covering extra little bits as we go along, but this is essentially what we'll be covering. First of all, you need to go to this downloads page here, and if you scroll down you'll see the list of places that have got the Arch ISO, and I'm in the UK, so I'm going to take the one from Bytemark. And then there's a few versions available. The one I clicked was this one here, and that will download in the top right corner. And whilst that's going on, there is a way of verifying the signature. So you kind of need a GPG thing to verify the signatures match, and that's a part of another video. I'm not going to do that here, but it's something that you should do just to make sure that there's not been any tampering going on with the Arch ISO. It says about preparing an installation medium. That's for if you're installing using an actual USB drive to physical hardware. We're doing a virtual machine, so we don't need to do that. So we can actually just boot the live environment. So first thing we need to do is create a virtual machine. So you'll need VirtualBox. Click on New, and we'll call it Arch. We just call it Arch, and we're going to we're going to choose where we're going to put it. So obviously you're using Windows, this screen will look slightly different, but it's essentially the same thing. So I'm going to put it in a folder called Virtual Machines, and I've got a folder called Arch where I put my Arch demo. So I'm going to up the memory size and I'll give it 6182, and then I'm going to give it 30 gigabytes of disk space. I'm going to go into settings. I'm going to go system processor. I'm going to up the processors to 4, and then I'm going to start the machine. And I'm going to pick the ISO image. So if it doesn't appear in this drop down list, you can click here, click add, and then pick the Arch ISO image. So I did this yesterday. I'm not going to wait for it to download again. I'm just going to click this one, click choose, and then click start. And then it says Arch Linux install medium, so you're just going to click the top option. You can actually minimize this bit now, so we can have this over here and the installation guide on the left hand side. So here we are in the Arch image on the right hand side. The first thing we do is going to type in the first command here, which is this lsusr share keyboard key maps, and I'm going to put pipe more on the end, and you can see the list of key maps come up, and you're looking for the one that's for your keyboard layout. To make it easier on yourself, you can actually do grep and put the UK in there if you just want the UK ones. And you can see these are the UK ones available. So the one I'm going to use is low keys UK. So now you can set a font. So if I do set font to 132B, it makes the font really big. But you can see which fonts are available in by doing ls usr share keyboard console fonts. Or that again. Set font to U32B. And we'll stick with this. It says about verifying the boot mode. We know it's going to be MBR because we're in a virtual machine. IP link, that will check whether your internet's working. And because it's a virtual machine, it will share it from your host PC, so that should work automatically. And to test that, you can see you've got this ping command here, so I can ping Arch Linux org, and that's going to prove internet connectivity by pinging the Arch Linux website. Now we're into updating the system clock, so time date control shows you the time, and the clock is kind of accurate. It's at UTC, is an hour behind where we're actually at in the UK, but I'm not going to change that now. I'm going to change that later on. So fdisk -L, so let's clear this and we're going to look at the disk situation. Fdisk -L, and you can see I've got you've got the 685 megabytes dev loop 0, which is your ISO image, and then you've got dev SDA, which is 30 gigabytes, which we know is the virtual machine hard drive that I created earlier. So now you want to create partitions. So in terms of a virtual machine, you really only need 2. So you can actually get away with 1 really, but I'm going to do fdisk, and it's dev SDA, which is the drive we want to partition, and then you click new, and you do P, and then you select the partition number. Now you see it says default 1, so the first one is the one we want to do, and the first sector is the first sector in the disk that you want to start from. So we want to start from the default position, which is at the beginning of the drive, and then you want to say how big do you want it, and you can see if you want to swap partition, you make it 512 meg. We do not need the EFI system partition because this is a virtual machine. We're going to do a standard boot. So we're going to do, all we have to do is type plus 5112M. So that's created the first partition, and then we're going to do N, and we're going to do the second partition, so P, and you can see the default has now changed to 2, so we're going to leave that. You can see the first sector's moved along. I'm going to set that, and this time we want the rest of the drive, so we can just press return, and now we can press write, W for write. If we do lsblk, you'll see that we've got 2 partitions, SDA1, SDA2, and SDA1 is our boot, SDA2 is the one we're going to use for Linux. So we're going to clear the screen, and it's makefs.ext4. This is going to make an ext4 partition. We're going to do it for dev SDA2, just like that. And then we're going to make the swap partition, make swap, and it's dev SDA1. Now you could put those drives in any order when you created them. I did the swap first because it's easier to work out the 512 and then the rest of the disk than the other way around using fdisk. We don't need to do this bit. This is making the EFI system partition, so we can get away with that. But what we do need to do now is mount the partition. So what we're going to do is mount the root partition, which is dev SDA2. So mount dev SDA2, and we're going to mount it into the MNT folder, just like that. and we want to turn on the swap, so we'll do swap dev SDA1. That's that. We're now in a position where our disk is ready to be written to, so clear the screen, and it says here about selecting mirrors, and these are in your etc pacman-d mirror list. So if we go to cd etc pacman.d, you'll see there's a mirror list. So if we nano mirror list, you'll see these are the list of servers to pull packages from. I'm just going to leave that as the default. Now we can do the installation of essential packages. Now, whilst this command is good, it is missing one thing. So we can do packstrap -k and /mount because you want to install it to mount. We're going to do base Linux. Now this could be, if you do Linux, it's just going to do the latest Linux kernel. If you want the long-term support, you do -LTS. So we're just going to do Linux and Linux firmware. Let me move this across so you can see it. And then we also want to do nano, because otherwise you haven't got an editor for later on. So that's what we're going to do. And now it's going to install all the packages. So you can see that's now completed. So we can clear the screen again. And what I want to do now is type genf stab -u mount, and then you output that to mount etc fstab. Now what that's doing, I had to look this up myself, I've got to admit. fstab is read by programs that work with disk partitions. It's a necessary step. We don't normally see this when we're installing distributions. It happens in the background, and to be honest, we don't really care too much about it. But it's a necessary step for installing Arch. And now what we want to do is we type arch chroot mnt. So that's changing your root system to be the mount folder. Essentially, you're becoming that system now. We're now inside our installed Arch system. So we want to set our time zone. So we do that using a symbolic link. And you'll see here it says user share zone info region city. So really, to be able to set the time, we need to know what's in there. So if we go cd user share zone info, and we do ls, you can see these are all the zones. If I ls, you can go into Europe, and you can see there's more regions in there, more cities in there. So there's London. So for me, that's the one I'd use. So to do my symbolic link, I want to do ln ssf usr share zone info Europe, and then London. And I want to put that to etc local time. So that's done. So then we have to do this HW clock sys2hc. Done. Now it says here about editing the local gen file. You can zoom this up to the top now. So this is why I installed nano. So nano etc local .gen, and you need to comment your where you are. So for me it's going to be ENGB like that, and then I can do Control O, Control X. So Control O saves the file, Control X exits nano, then we can run the command locale gen. Like that. And then it says you need to set the language variable accordingly here, etc locale.conf. So if we do nano etc locale.conf, we have to put lang equals, and then you need so I need to put lang equals en gb.utf8 like that. Control O, Control X, and then you need to edit the keymap file. So we're going to do nano etc vconsole.conf and keymap equals, I think I put UK there before, so I'm just going to put UK again. And then we're at the point of doing your host name, so we can do nano etc hostname, and we can put whatever you want to call your machine. So I'm going to put Arch install demo like that, and so my PC will be called that. We can skip the next bit, we don't need to do that for a virtual machine, but we do need to set the password, and this will create your root user. And then it says choose and install a Linux capable bootloader, so we need a guide for that. And for this guide, I've gone to the ItsFoss website, and it's got an install Arch Linux guide, and there's a section called install and glub, and we want the bit that's install and glub on non-UEFI systems. So we'll do, I'm going to clear the screen, and we're going to do pacman -s glub, and that will download glub and install it to your system. And then we're going to do glub install dev SDA, and because it's a non-EFI system, you actually want dev SDA and not dev SDA1 or dev SDA2. It's just dev SDA like that. And you can see it says no error reported, so we'll clear the screen again, and we're going to do the next line, which is glub make config -o boot glub.cfg, and that's generating your glub menu for when you reboot. Now, a good thing about this guide is it takes it a little bit further than the actual Arch guide. It talks about adding an actual user in, so we're going to do that. So pacman -s sudo, and we're going to add a user in, user add -m Gary, and I'm going to set a password for Gary by doing password and then username, and I'm going to give it a password like that. And then down here it talks about adding the user to these groups here, so which is what we're going to do. So user mod -ag, and this is basically going to add the Gary user to all these groups. And finally, you need to give anyone in the wheel group access to run all commands, and to do that we actually just type in the command editor equals nano to make nano the default editor, and then via it with sudo, and what we're looking for is wheel this line here, and I just want to uncomment it, and it says uncomment to allow members of group wheel to execute any command. So because Gary's been put in that group, I can run any command. So Control O, Control X to exit out of there. Okay, so before we install KDE, we need to install Xorg and Network Manager. So we're going to do pacman -s Xorg and Network Manager. Xorg is the display server, and Network Manager will give you access to be able to get online in your installed system. So now that's installed, what we can do is install KDE. So sudo pacman, we don't use sudo, we can use pacman -s. We're going to install Plasma Meta. You can also install KDE applications, which will give you the full set of KDE applications. Let's do that, see what you get installed. So these are the list of applications that are going to get installed. So you're going to get a whole load of games, you're going to get a web browser, you're going to get audio, the whole lot. If you didn't want that, you can just install Plasma Meta. It's going to ask you some questions. I'm going to select all the default options for these. And now it's going to download 1.5 gigabytes of files. I'm going to set yes and let it go. Okay, so that's all installed. Now we've only got two things we need to do. System control enable STGM and system control enable network manager. And now we should be able to reboot. So we need to take out the Arch Linux and we're going to do machine reset. And you can see we've now got the grub menu. We'll click on Arch and we've got the login screen. So now all I have to do is type in my password. And here we are, we're at the Welcome to Plasma screen. And if I click on, I'm going to actually close that, and if I click on here, you'll see all the applications that we've got installed. There's absolutely loads of them because we installed KDE applications. You've got a very, very heavyweight system. If you didn't want all the applications at the point of installing KDE, don't you choose Plasma, but don't choose KDE applications. But we've got a very full KDE system. And you've got a running Arch. Now the only other thing we need to do is make it full screen, which we'll do now. So we're going to go to devices and we're going to install guest edition CD image. We're going to mount and open. We're going to click here, click Open Terminal. And we're going to type ls. And we're going to write /vbox Linux editions.1. And you can see it says it has to be run as administrator, so I'm going to do sudo bang bang. Enter your password, and now it's installing the VirtualBox guest editions. Don't worry about any messages that pop up. And what we're going to do now is sudo reboot now, and we should be able to go full screen. Probably not going to work until we've logged in though. There you can see, if you set the display configuration, it will make it full screen. And so now we have a full screen Arch Linux virtual machine. We have a web browser called Falcon. And here we are, I've opened a browser and I'm able to get to Google. I'm able to get to BBC News. And I'm able to get to YouTube. And most importantly, I should be able to get to Everyday Linux User. And you might think that's the end of the video, but it's not quite. To sum up, essentially, I've got KDE installed in Arch, and you saw how long it's taken to get to this point. And I dare say it's probably not all set up properly. Audio may or may not be working, Bluetooth may or may not be working, printers may or may not be working. I suspect none of those are working. And that's something I'm going to address in a future video. But the point of this video is to show you, one, how to install Arch Linux, and two, to show you the hoops you have to go through to install Arch Linux. If you are just wanting to use Arch without jumping through these hoops, you can install a distribution such as Endeavour OS, and it gives you all the benefits of Arch without having to jump through all these hoops to get it set up in the first place. Now, it may not be a base Arch install like this one, but it's a lot like Linux Mint. There's a reason why people use Linux Mint instead of Debian. It's because it's easy to get set up in the first place, and the same with Zorin, it's easy to get set up in the first place. And when it comes to Arch, it's easier to get set up with something like Endeavour or Manjaro than it is to install the base distribution. So one size doesn't fit all. Whilst you can get, if you learn Arch or Debian, you don't need all these other distributions. If you don't want to jump through the hoops and you want to get up and running really quickly, then install one of the sub-distros that use Arch or Debian as a base, and then you'll be up and running using Linux in no time at all. And I've got plenty of videos showing how to install Zorin, how to install Mint, how to install Ubuntu, etc. And that's the end of the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on Everyday Linux User.